And I see this on Twitter. And I know that NFL jerseys are expensive. They cost a lot of money. I'm not telling anybody what to do with their cash or anything like that. I still say it's a little disrespectful to Allen Robinson, who was a good player for us the last year, notwithstanding. He chose to come to Chicago. He chose us over Green Bay and some of the other teams. And I understand it ended poorly. And you're ready to move on. But instead of taping over his name, how about just go buy the Velus Jones jersey? I know you might need to save up a little bit. They're not cheap. Maybe you can go find that site that gives the Chinese knockoffs or what. I probably shouldn't say that though, because I'm employed by the NFL. Go to NFL Shop, please, and purchase a jersey. Save your money. Have some respect for everybody all the way around. And I think it'll help out Velus Jones. I think they could get a percentage of these jersey sales anyways. You don't want to help the young man out? He's very close to retirement. Okay, I'm not doing those jokes. But in any event, Sammy, before I say any more, let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank. It is me, Adam Rank, and we're going to have a great show for you today. Joining us here in a couple of minutes will be famed internet sensation Ill Will is going to be joining the show. We're very excited to have him. But before we do that, before we get to him, I did want to take a moment to mention that the Bears just had one of their mini camps, and it seems if you're going and if you saw this the story today or Thursday in The Athletic, the Bears offense looks like it's really going to resemble the 49ers offense. We brought in, obviously, we have a fullback now, which is huge. I think that can't go understated. Kari Blasingame is our fullback. Actually, he's going to be joining the show next week to talk about the evolution of this offense. And to me, it is one of those things that, like, hearing everything out of camp, and I don't want to get too bogged down into like, well, Justin Fields missed a throw here, or he's working on his motion there. Like, look, it's a work in progress. He is a second-year quarterback, first year of having an offense designed for him. And if he is going to have an offense designed for him that is of the Mike Shanahan or that is Mike Shanahan filters all the way down. If it is that kind of scheme, that is only going to benefit Justin Fields and this Bears offense. And it is one of the things that we've been trying to tell people all along to try to fight back against this notion. And one of the guys who's been helping to fight back against this notion is one of the guys who is he's 1/3 of the Kangs of the Midway podcast. And listen, I'm not cool enough to say that name, and I embarrassed myself. The three Kangs. I can't say that, right? Three Kangs of the Midway. I listen, I love the Beastie Boys. He loves the Beastie Boys. I should not be saying three Kangs. I'm so sorry. I know you got to know yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you got to know yourself, but he's also one of the best guys on Twitter to follow. He is the keeper of all the receipts for all your bad takes. You're going to have to pay for them in January because he has all the receipts. Please welcome to the show, Ill Will.
Thanks. Put down the applause. I'm just playing.
Listen. I love it. I'm so excited to have you here. I've enjoyed following along on Twitter and everything like that. I'm sorry that I embarrassed the three Kangs. Can you apologize to the rest of the Kangs? Because I feel terrible. I'm like, I'm not cool enough to say this name. You need it. And listen, I understand my limitations. I know this, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, man. It's all good. You know, that's why I said when we said on the podcast, depending on your vernacular, right? It depends on how you say it. We say Kings, we say Kangs, just depending on your vernacular. You know, we're Southern California. I'm a Southern California kid now. I've been adopted from Chicago, but you know, Californians, I still speak kind of Midwest compared to Californians. But thank you for having me on. Yeah, Bears Twitter is crazy. Yeah,
it's an interesting place. It's an interesting place. Speaking of Southern California, as many of you know, I live in Southern California. The only thing more toxic than Bears Twitter is Angels Twitter. I'm a member of both of them. So it's not fun, but I always like your perspective, and I always appreciate you trying to ground everything in reality, because forgive me if I'm wrong, but it feels like people are picking on the Bears, because it feels like nobody, and I pay attention, I follow all the teams, nobody gets as much scorn, nobody gets as much media scrutiny like the Bears. Have you noticed that?
I've noticed that. I don't know if it's because we have a large fan base and we're like rabid, right? Like I'm at Walt Disneyland and I'm walking through with my Justin Fields jersey on, and I'm hearing people scream, "Go Bears!"
Yeah.
And they know we're like that. So I think they pick on us to get clicks and likes. And you know, and sometimes I try to help myself and sometimes I can't. It's just so bad, right? It's so bad. Like people just say, Justin Fields is a bust. And I'm like, how? Did you watch the Bears last year? Did you see Matt Nagy run curls and hitches and stick routes and, you know, leave them in 5-man protection to get sacked by Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney like 8 times a game? Like, did you see this?
Yeah. How do you watch the Browns game and think that was on Justin Fields by any stretch of the imagination?
I don't know. I saw people saying that he should have got the ball out quicker, and then he had 2.2 seconds to throw. Like, you know, it's crazy. Tom Brady can't even process information that fast. You know?
Yeah, what does he got to be like Gabrielle Reese? Like volleyball, that if the snap comes from center, he's just spiking it. Like, what do you want from him? Like, there's nothing. Like, you could not have gotten the, like, Myles Garrett almost beat the snap to Justin Fields. Like, what are you talking about? I never understand this. It is crazy to me too. And and by the way, I need to announce this too. As we're recording this, I missed an opportunity to go on with the Football Outsiders Thursday morning. Was unable to, they invited me. I accepted. I was unable to fulfill that commitment on Thursday. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do it, because I wanted to go in and start talking about some of these things. Like, it is so ridiculous. Like, I don't understand. Like, well, they got a better offensive system. Yeah, but they've done nothing. I'm like, what I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. We talked about this on our podcast on the Three Kings. The Bears offense, they didn't have blue chip talent like at the top level, but they didn't have scrubs. Like, I think Matt Nagy did not get the most out of his players. He did not get the most out of the offensive line. He had Allen Robinson. He completely just bungled that situation.
Yeah.
He had Darnell Mooney, who's a good number 2 wide receiver. Cole Kmet had 60 catches. He's a good wide receiver. Jimmy Graham didn't even play. You brought him back to, like, I don't know, like play chess with Cole Kmet. I don't know what he was there. Well,
what was his purpose?
He called 10 touchdowns the year before. Then all of a sudden he just doesn't play. You sign Marquise Goodwin, Damiere Byrd. Oh, they can run fast. You don't even pass on the ball, right?
Yeah.
He's allergic to running the ball. He had to run the ball when Laser started calling plays, but you got David Montgomery, you got Khalil Herbert, you got Damian Williams. You don't want to run the ball. And it's the same thing over and over. It makes sure your head hurt, you know, and you're seeing this stuff and you're like, you don't understand. I get why some people don't get it, because they're not Bear fans, right? They're national media. They just glance over at the Bears every so often. We as Bear fans, we know this. We're like, why are we leaving 5-man protections with Jason Peters? God bless Jason Peters, St. Peters. He's a saint, right? He's 40 years old. He's an old man. I can't block Jadeveon Clowney, right? I couldn't block him never in my life.
But no.
As a 40-year-old man, right? Come on, man.
Oh,
just throw him a tight end or something.
Trying to chase the toddlers around at this age is very difficult. I can't imagine trying to stop one of the best defensive players on the planet. It's just not going to work out. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I try to explain it to people, and I'm like, listen, it's like watching, speaking of toddlers, it's like watching a toddler play Madden, and they're just not doing it. You're like, oh, give me the controller. Like, if you give the control, like if you take the controller from somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and put it in the hands of somebody who's a little bit more competent, there's going to be an improvement. Yeah. I'm not saying that you're going to go out and you're going to beat Skimbo for the Madden title, but you're going to be better than you were when you had this toddler running the system. And in some respects, Matt Nagy, and listen, I wanted to love him as a fellow bald. I wanted to love him. I should have known that first game when he rolls into Miami and he's got a visor on. It's like, bro, you're bald. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
I don't care how much sunscreen you have on. You're still wear the trucker cap or something. At least do something. I don't know if he was trying to do his own thing. I just think that the system is going to be a lot better. And obviously, I'm sure that you saw on The Athletic, and I'm sure you're paying attention. How do you feel about this transition? I love the idea of having Blasingame in there as our Kyle Juszczyk type of player. How are you feeling about the offensive system?
I like it. I've been known in the past to give Cal Shanahan some slander, and not for his offensive scheme, which his daddy created, and Gary Kubiak. I want to give props to the originators, and he innovated it. So
yeah,
I like that system for Justin Fields. And remember, when Justin Fields came out, a lot of people thought Cal Shanahan was going to draft him, right, instead of Trey Lance.
Should have.
The QB collective, and he kind of came up under Cal Shanahan. He was a shoe-in for that position, right? For that system. I mean, and to have it in Chicago was like a breath of fresh air. You know, he played better under center. He played better on play action passes. He played better with vertical passing game, crossing routes, mesh concepts, rollouts. That's the staple of the Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay offense. I think it's perfect. And the run game helps the pass game because it helps. Yeah. And where Trevor Siemian said this, the play pass game, the play action game. You got good running backs, right? You have good running backs. You drafted another one this draft. And,
the kid from Baylor.
Ebner, right? All can catch the ball out of the backfield. You pound people. That's what Cal Shanahan does. Cal Shanahan just pounds you. Then all of a sudden the linebackers creep up, and then he does play action, and then he hits you deep. Then you know, George Kittle's like dancing in the end zone, and Deebo Samuel's like running free. You're like, how did he get so open? Because they're playing a run. I think it helps, and I think they're helping Justin Fields because they're not asking him to be Pat Mahomes, right? They're not going to ask him to throw the ball 600 times. It's like, okay, we understand you're a second-year quarterback. We're going to run the ball. We're going to have a good defense. And if you take off, kid, you take off. But we're not going to throw it all on your shoulders. And when people say they're not helping Justin Fields, I'm like, they're not asking Justin Fields to be a superstar year two. Everybody, I tell you, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert like ruin it for every NFL rookie.
100%. Right? Absolutely.
They're awesome. They're amazing. I love them. You know, last year when the Bears weren't like looking like they were going to address the quarterback position, I like fake threatened to be a Charger fan.
Same. Oh, 100%. I was getting close. I was like,
I'm in California.
I was in NFL shop. It would have been an easy transition for me.
And oh man, we didn't have Justin Fields and they got Khalil Mack now. Oh man, they've been really tempting. So they ruined it because they kind of came out the gates on fire.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that projection. We don't even have the team that they had. You know, he has Brandon Staley, you know. Cincinnati has an awesome team, you know, so we don't have the same infrastructure that they have. So you got to give it time. He may come out next year and throw for 4,500 yards, but I'm not expecting that, you know.
No, I think it's kind of foolish, not foolish, but like it's unreasonable because again, if they're running and I know that I made the Freudian slip at the top of the show where I was talking about the Mike Shanahan system, then I tried to correct myself and I'm like, wait a minute, it is Mike Shanahan's system that we give to Kyle now. But it's one of those things like that's not a system that's going to allow you to go out there and throw for a ton of yards like that. It's just not going to happen. And it's one of the things too, that when you watch the 49ers play, like, I don't think that it's any coincidence that any time that Jimmy Garoppolo's gone there and been successful, whenever he plays, Jimmy Garoppolo wins. Like he just wins. And I don't think that you look at Jimmy Garoppolo and you're like, well, he's on Aaron Rodgers level. Whatever CJ Beathard or any of those other guys, the random jobbers they would pull out, the anonymous white QB who comes out of nowhere, CJ Beathard and all these guys, Nick Mullins, they all play well in stretches. Like they come in and they play pretty well. And it's because of that system that is set up in place. And I would say that Justin Fields is better than all of those guys that I just mentioned. I think that, you know, again, it goes back to like the notion of like, this is not going to happen. Like how, like somebody like, and this is what I would have said on the Football Outsiders, because Aaron is very bright. Like how do you not understand this? Like if somebody's stranded, like if there's somebody who's in downtown Huntington Beach right now, who's like, I need to get to Seal Beach, or I need to get to Long Beach. You can give him a bike. He'll eventually get there. It'll take him a while, or you can give him a car and he'll get there. He'll get there faster. I think it's the equivalent of upgrading from a bicycle to a car. Like, well, now it's going to be a little bit easier. Not going to be, you know, perfect, but it's easier. And I think that's what it's going to be like for Justin Fields.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be easier. And you see it going on now. They're talking about how they're working on his footwork. I don't think he was coached. I forget who came out and said it. It was a while ago. Like, this kid isn't being coached. They're not coaching him. Like, what they were asking him to do was just it was asinine, right? George Berlissimo gave me this link to this thing, and I guess the Bears had like everything was like short to the left. Every passing play. Like, some NFL website had this. You don't think professional NFL teams know this? Like, they're all running curl routes. They turn around and put their hands out. They get blasted in the back, right? And we wonder why our receivers didn't get separation. And it's the same thing. Matt Nagy was so predictable. We can call it. I was at the Rams game, right? The first game. It was disgusting. SoFi Stadium is
I knew better. I knew better than to go to that game.
Yeah, my brother's in the Coast Guard, right? He flew all the way from Maryland, right?
No, don't do that. My friend Wolf drove in from Arizona, and I'm like, bro, you might want to stay home. Like, even as the most optimistic Bears fan I know, I'm like, even I think
it was embarrassing. Even the Rams fans stopped giving us crap, bro. They just kind of just like, hey, Bears suck, and they just like, I wish they would play Justin Fields. But you can see it. You're watching the field and you're just watching curl routes. You got Marquise Goodwin that runs a 4-2 and he's running a curl route. Mm-hmm. Everything. I think the defense is going to help the Bears.
Yeah. What about that? I mean, they went defense. I think a lot of us, myself included, I wanted to draft a bunch of receivers. Looking at it now, getting Kyler Gordon, getting the kid out of Penn State. I need to start learning these names better. I'm good with it now. I think that we're in a spot like, this is probably the best way to go. How do you feel about how the draft went?
I had a feeling that it was going to shape up that way based on how the board was kind of falling.
Yeah,
right?
On Friday, it was apparent that they were taking a cornerback no matter what.
Yeah, because you look at the board, you like, man, there's a lot of good defensive players on the board, right?
Yeah.
And all the wide receivers in the second round had some type of flaw, right? And so you're like, okay, you got guys that should have gone in the first round, like Kyle Gordon. He was in the green room. He was expected to go in the first round. So if he's on the board and the Bears select him, I was like, I'm surprised he was even still there. And my podcast mate, DeVory Nesby, actually said, I want Jaquan Brisker. I didn't watch a lot of Penn State football.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with him.
Yeah, but the kid is awesome. I knew he was good. Yeah, he's amazing. So you're like, these two guys probably could have won in the first round. So you got him in the second round. And then I knew that was going to happen. I think I joked on Twitter that, hey, when the Bears select two defensive players, Bears Twitter is going to go have a meltdown. And that's exactly what happened.
That's what we did the show. We did the show on Friday. And I'm pretty sure it was Shagru who was on with me. Yeah. And we both knew that we were going corner. And I think that he was the one. He's like, they're going to go two defensive guys. And I'm like, they can't. They got to get, like, we'll still get a good. And sure enough, they did it. But looking back at it now, I think it's going to be good. And like you were saying, improving the defense improves the quarterback. Like, why do we have to explain this concept to people?
I don't know. I think it's because of highlights and just like Bears fans. I think what it is too, and I've had people tell me this. Bears fans, we're so used to having a good defense, they just want to have the offense, right? Yeah. They want to have the high flying offense.
That's how I felt. Yeah.
Same thing. But like I remember Tony Dungy. I heard Tony Dungy. I think he was on the I forget which podcast he was on. He was with That's Davis. From NBC Sports. And he said that you have to have an identity, right? You have to have an identity as a team. The Steelers have an identity. The Ravens have an identity. The Packers have an identity. And fortunately, the identity of the Chicago Bears is defense, right?
Yeah.
And so having a good defense doesn't prevent you from having a good offense. What it does is it keeps the game close, right? Which is good. It doesn't put a lot of pressure on your quarterback. So, you can still run the ball because you know what happens when you go down 20 points. You can't run the ball. You're throwing the ball all again. So you keep the game close for Justin Fields. You got a good running game, so you can have a good run-pass balance, and that helps the passing game. If you look at all the Shanahan-type teams, Matt LaFleur, McVay, Shanahan, they all have good defenses.
Yeah.
They all have good defenses.
That goes that goes under the radar. Like the Rams defense was exceptional. The Packers defense is exceptional. And you know what? The Packers threw the ball less than the Bears last year. Now it helps when you're winning games and you're not trying to like play catch up, but I think it's telling. Like Aaron Rodgers is very successful and he does not have to throw the ball 700 times a year. like the Saints or anybody like that. Like they're a run-based team. And I think that, and you start looking at, the way the Packers are constructed, where of course Luke Getsy comes from, and you're like, okay, the quarterbacks, Rodgers might be a little bit better than Fields right now. Yes. But with Davante Adams now gone, I think like Mooney, Lazard, okay, that's sort of even. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. I'm like, I don't necessarily hugely tip the scales in Green Bay's factor. If I do at all, I think Aaron Jones might be a little bit more explosive. Bob Tunyon, Cole Kmet. I'm like, there's a lot of similarity there. Mm-hmm. Like I know we're optimistic Bears fans, but there's a lot of similarity there to be like, why do you think that we're going to win like 3 games? Like we're a competent organization now, it feels like.
Yeah, it's the wildest take. This schedule was not great, right? Like I'm an optimistic Bear fan. I can say, okay, we might not beat Green Bay twice. That's pretty realistic.
You don't listen. Aaron Nagler, Tom Grossi, they don't watch this show. You don't have to be nice to them. You can say we could beat them. Like, no,
I am a Packer hater. Everyone knows that. My energy with the Packers remain the same. I don't care if we lose. I hate the Packers. Everyone knows it, right? So, but I'm not going to sit up here and say that, oh, we can't beat the Jets. We can't beat the Lions. Right. We can't beat the Falcons. Like, who are these teams, right? These teams are like, I think the Jets had the worst defense in the NFL. Talking about Football Outsiders, according to DVOA on Football Outsiders, they were 32nd. The Lions were like 30th. I think the Jags were 31st. These guys
they loaded up on defense. Oh wait, no, they didn't. I mean, they got Sauce Gardner, but they spent a lot of equity. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Not enough to keep me from doing it, but that's the thing. It's like, I think that it's more telling that you say, okay, our quarterback's good enough. Let's focus on the defense. Where the Jets are like, if we don't surround this guy with 85 potential all-pros, he's not going to be worth anything. Mm-hmm. I think that's more damning than drafting defense.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, if he isn't the guy, you're done. Like the thing about like with Miami, not to go, I know this Bears, but they surrounded. I'm a Bama fan, by the way, but I don't think Tua is a superstar. But they spent a lot of money, like he was a championship caliber QB. When he's not going to win, like, let's be honest, like the Miami Dolphins aren't going to win the Super Bowl. I'm pretty confident in saying that on live on there. You can tag.
Why don't we do that?
Takes exposed.
Sammy, make a graphic. It will. The Dolphins are not going to win the Super Bowl. It will. The Sick Podcast with Adam Rank.
Right, and they spent a lot of money on offense. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I like what Poles is doing. I don't think the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl this year, but I like the direction that he's going. Next year, we're going to have $100 million in salary cap. We're going to have all our draft picks. We're going to have a young team. We were the oldest team in the NFL, right? They drafted all these guys, all these young guys, all these offensive linemen, all this competition. We have a system. We're running the cover 2, baby. Tampa 2 Bears. We're running the Shanahan system. Let's just see how it works out. The part of the fun of being a fan, right? Because we're all fans, is to see how this stuff works out. I want to see the offensive line competition.
100%.
Yeah, let's play it out. Like, guys are like, we need to sign a guard right now. And I'm like, why?
We got to get that right guard. Right guard, the most important position in football.
I said, love you somebody as much as the Chicago Bears love the right guard position. Please.
That's
like,
right.
Bear fans love the right. I know, love Kyle Long, Bear legend, but he ruined it.
I love him, but it is something else to see everybody. And the guy was Ryan Bates. When we did not get him, you would have thought that we were in the running for Davante Adams. And at the last minute, the Packers are like, no. The devastation of people, of a guy who played maybe 5 games. I forget what it was. It's like, it'll be okay. Like we'll figure it out. That's an easy fix. And again, and it goes back to like all these things. And Mark Sessler, who's a friend of mine, who wrote, I see these notifications come on my phone. It's like the Bears are trying to play in 2 different dualities of like building for the future, but also trying to figure out if they have their quarterback. It's like, I don't understand why these 2 things don't work in concert. Like we will be able to tell, like, regardless of how many yards he throws for, you will have a sense of if Justin Fields is a good quarterback or not by the end of this year, regardless of who the receivers are. It doesn't matter. You'll tell. We're sophisticated enough we're not all rooted in fantasy football. Like I don't need him to go win me a fantasy title. And that's again another one of my friends, JJ Zachariason. He was like, Velus Jones might be the worst player that I've ever charted for fantasy ever. Worst rookie. And I'm like, and I told him, I said, I don't care. I literally don't care. But if he makes 10 YouTube worthy plays this year, scores a handful of touchdowns, is a force in the special teams. Notice this too. And this goes again. I notice a lot of things go underreported. I'm in the media. I should be the one, like, it should not be it's kind of not underreported because I do report it.
Yeah.
The fact that they went out and drafted so many guys who are exceptional in special teams should not go unwarranted. Because every time on day 3, when they were picking all these guys and outside of the offensive linemen, everybody else they picked, like, oh, and he's also, like, Daniel Jeremiah saying, like, he also excels on special teams. I'm like, that's not a coincidence. That's not accidental. They understand. They watched the playoff game. They saw where the Packers' Achilles heel was. Like, that is not something. No, that's not an accident. I think the Bears are building a team that's going to be good in all 3 phases of the game, as opposed to these other teams, as you said. And I'm going to steal this point now. Like, all these teams, the Dolphins, the Zach Wilsons, the Jets, all these teams are so top heavy that you've gone so far and above trying to make your quarterback comfortable that, like, you're not helping them out by losing games 45-40. Like, that's not going to help him.
No, it's not. You know, like, Matt Eberflus, he's a disciple of Rod Marinelli, right? Who's, the Lovie Smith, the Tony Dungy, right? Remember those Bears teams? We had good special teams. We had good defense. We had a good running game. We just didn't have the quarterback. Sorry, Rex. Yeah. We just didn't have the quarterback, right?
That's fair.
We might actually have the quarterback now. Just imagine if you put the quarterback on that team, right? Yeah. We would have won the Super Bowl. So 100%. I see, 100% we would have won the Super Bowl. I think Justin Fields is the quarterback, but they're building the entire team. Velus Jones Jr. is a special teams monster. He won special teams player of the year, I think, in USC. And,
USC and Tennessee.
And Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had like 600 something yards on kick returns, 300 on punt returns. I think he had 1,700 total yards, almost 1,800 total yards, and total offense and special teams for Tennessee. This is who he is. He's going to just be that all-purpose guy. That's why a couple of us did. Brendan did too. I did too, about Percy Harvin, where he can return kicks and return punts. He's a wide receiver. He's on jet sweeps. He's catching slants. He's going deep. He's just going to be one of those kind of gadgety players that just moves all over the field. Sure, we don't have the big number 1 X wide receiver. We can get that. Like, if I said this on the Three Kings podcast, if I have a car, right, I want to make sure my engine is right. I want to make sure I have proper tires. I had a good transmission, all this. To me, a wide receiver 1 like DK Metcalf and these guys, these are the rims on the car, right? This is the last thing that I'm putting on the car. I want to have a good defense. I want to have a good offensive line. I want a good offensive infrastructure. I want to have good special teams. And then now I can spend excess money on rims because everything else is right. Now I can go out and waste draft picks and waste capital on a wide receiver. The Bears aren't there yet. You need to get all this other stuff correct first, right? Before you even get to that point. Darnell Mooney is a fine wide receiver. No, he's not A.J. Brown, but he's a fine wide receiver. He's an 80-catch, 1,000-yard wide receiver, and I'm tired of people just slandering Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
This guy is a good
Did he play more games than A.J. Brown last year?
I'm pretty sure he did.
Pretty sure he did.
I'm pretty sure.
And by the way, A.J. Brown is built like Roman Reigns, and Darnell Mooney's skinny, and yet, I'm sorry, Darnell Mooney doesn't miss games.
Exactly. He's built like a kicker, but he keeps playing. He looks like a kicker, but the boy is tough,
Yeah, and 100%. And it's one of those things, I think, that when people talk about wide receiver 1s, I know I've said this countless times, but everybody gets into build a receiver mode on Madden, and you want him to look a certain way, but it's look, Cooper Kupp is not a big, he's tall, but he's not he's not all rocked up. He doesn't look like he's John Cena out there running around, but he was out there and was the most productive guy in the NFL. And if you funnel targets to a guy enough, he'll become a wide receiver 1. And again, you look at what the Packers have done. Aaron Rodgers ignores everybody outside of his top receiver, sometimes throws it to his running backs. and the Bears have added, some guys who can catch the ball out of the backfield. Their tight ends developing. I don't know. It just I don't know. It seems like a lie almost. It's like you're just not being truthful, which I think is the big.
Yeah, it's a lot of that, but it's okay. I kind of prefer people to sleep on the Bears, right? When they hype us up, like in 2019, it always kind of come crashing down. So
yeah, but
hype us up.
That was bad. That was all Nagy though. He had gotten us into he sold us some snake oil, and I was there like, yeah, I'm buying it. Like, this elixir works. I'm gonna grow a full head of hair. And then I was always disappointed too. And I'm ready to be hurt again. But every year, that first game of the season, I'm like, you know what? I think this is it. He finally got his guy, or this is finally it. Maybe this is Andy Dalton. Maybe Andy Dalton. He was, talking myself into like Andy Dalton played well for the Cowboys. Why should we ignore this? And then you're watching like 5 minutes of that game. You're like, yeah, it's the same thing. Like, what am I thinking? It's like watching Star Wars Episode 9 again and being like, it's going to be a different movie this time. Like, nope, I've seen it already. I know how it ends. It's not great. I'm going to be disappointed, and I'm going to leave all that. But it feels like, and I'm again ready to be hurt again. I think Eberflus, I think with Getsy, everything just is lining up correctly. And it goes back to what you were saying about like Justin Fields was brought up in this Shanahan concept. He's back. And it seems like, and again, of things not being an accident, Ryan Poles knew this. And he's like, give me a guy who, a head coach who's going to install this kind of system. Like, you don't think that they talked about this during the interview process of like, hey, Flus, like who do you have as an idea for an offensive coordinator? Getsy? Like, well, that's perfect because this is the kind of quarterback that we have. That all shows me that they believe in Justin Fields. Like that shows me, like they've illustrated, if anything, it feels like they've illustrated that they have a lot of faith in Justin Fields and they're not sabotaging him at all, even though I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan and that's one of my favorite songs.
Shout out to the Beastie Boys,
By the way, I know, and I always tell Sammy, I said, one of the things we don't do here, and I'm prone to do this, is we don't get off topic too much, but I do have to say something, and because I feel like there's a correlation here with people with the Bears narrative. This morning, somebody tried to pretend that the Beastie Boys weren't popular back in the day. Like, what? What are we talking about? Like, that was one that of all the things that I've seen on the internet over the last couple of days, that might have been the most shocking.
Yeah, sometimes people just tweet stuff. I swear, I'm like, were you even alive in the 80s and 90s? No, the Beastie Boys? Like, you can't comment on it. Like, I don't comment on stuff beyond, like, when people talk about basketball players and football players before my time, I usually stay out of the conversation.
100%.
I call Magic at the end of his career, Bird at the end of that career. Like, so I have a little bit of opinion on them. I didn't see Wilt Chamberlain. I'm not going to talk about him. I have no idea.
We were talking about that when we did Take It to the Rank on Tuesday night. We were talking about like, who is the best running back that you've ever seen who's not Walter Payton? And a lot of great names were popping up. And I always go back to LaDainian Tomlinson. I think that he profiles the most like Walter Payton. But again, like when people are like, well, Jim Brown, you're like, okay, listen, I could have been. I did not see Jim Brown play. Marion Motley, I'm sure was great. Paul Hornung, fine. I didn't see them, so I can't comment on that. But it's like somebody just came up and was like, how come people didn't like Jim Brown? You're like, what? I'm sure people did. Like, why are you talking about this?
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. It's like, yeah, Beastie Boys, yeah. Paul Revere. Of course, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, but that beat, right. I still to this day, I play that song regularly.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, you mentioned Hold It Now, Hit It. That is one that goes under the radar of like their Mount Rushmore of great songs or whatever. Because everybody knows Sabotage and Paul Revere. But and I will also contend that Paul's Boutique was a incredible record that did not get its due back during the day.
Yeah. Great album. That whole era, man, was good music. I don't know about what's going on now.
I know. I digress. Let's get back on track. We talked about this a little bit in the green room before the show. I want to put it out on record now. I've changed the teams that we've beaten because for anybody who follows my career, you know that my record predictions are always 100% flawless. I nail them every time. Maybe not. We will be doing that. We're in talks. We're already getting the studio time. So look for that in the near future. The full slate, all 272. I will be doing it. I was on record on this, the night of the schedule release. Bears are going to win 11 games. So ill will, how many games do you have the Bears winning this season?
Oh, man. When we did our podcast, I had them at 10-7.
I'm sorry. What was the name of that podcast again?
Three Kings of the Midway.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Three Kings or Kangs, depending on your vernacular.
Kangs. I'm starting to feel myself to almost say Kangs again.
Yeah. I got a buddy who's out here in California. He's from like Yucaipa, if you're familiar.
I'm very familiar with Yucaipa. I'm an IE person, so yeah.
Yeah, and he is a huge hip hop fan, right? And so like he says some things like you can't say it, and I said he has a pass, he can say it. He is certain. He knew who De La Soul was, and so I was like, "You get a pass. You're from Yucaipa, and you know who De La Soul is. You get a pass."
That makes sense. It all checks out.
It all checks out. But realistically, probably 8 and 9.
Nope. That's not what you said.
I said
10-7 your number. There
10-7 on the record. I had 10-7 on the record. Going game by game. Game by game, I had them at 10-7.
Don't let anybody talk you out of that. I got talked into 11 because Kyle Brandt was, running his mouth saying that I was going to automatically predict them to win 10. And I said, it's not going to be 10. It's going to be 11. But it's, we talked about this briefly before you came on, but it's like, okay, I don't even want to concede one game. I don't want to concede both games to the Packers.
No.
But there are a lot of winnable games in this schedule. John McClain, who used to cover the Texans for the Houston Chronicle, was out there like, oh, I can't wait for this Lovie Smith revenge game. And you're like, bro, he's 0-2 against the Bears. He's made his return to Soldier Field with a team that was probably better than the one he's got right now. Stop the narratives. Like there are a lot of winnable games there for the Bears. They're playing the NFC East. The Eagles are going to be very good, but the Giants, the Commanders, even the Cowboys, like I'm not conceding the Cowboys to you guys. Why would I ever do such a thing? I think there's reason for optimism for this team. Yeah.
We usually beat the Cowboys for some odd reason. It just seems to work. Remember Mr. Trubisky had that hell of a game versus them?
Prime time game.
Yeah. The Texans, that's an interesting game. Like you said, Lovey's been back. And I went back. I did something interesting. NFL Game Pass. Shout out to your employer. I pay for that service. I'm religious. I pay all the time. I love it. Going back.
It's a great service. Like of all the things I will tell you, I was telling you to go get black market jerseys. So you know that I will keep it real. Game Pass is legitimate. That is something that you should invest in.
Yes. So I went back and watched the game versus. I actually watched every game that Coach Eberflus coached versus whatever team we're facing, right, including the Packers, the 49ers. But they destroyed the Texans. The Texans scored a total of 3 points in 2 games versus a Matt Eberflus defense. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to have much success. I don't think they added enough weaponry to just overcome whatever Matt Eberflus is going to throw at them. That's something I'm really interested in seeing. It's something that's very underrated about this team. No one's talking about the defense. Yeah. You hired a guy who had the number 3 ranked defense, according to DVOA, Football Outsiders, give you some ammunition to go and argue your point with them, right? He was number 3. The first year I went back, let me look. Maybe the first year they sucked. No, they were 10th.
No, they were good. I remember your tweets about this.
Yeah, they were good. So I'm like, why is everyone thinking that the Bears were ranked 13th last year, even with the secondary being a complete mess, right? Why are they going to get worse? They're going to have a good defense, right?
Yeah.
The Bears defense, as right now, personnel-wise, is better than that Colts defense. In 2018, Darius Leonard was a rookie. Kenny Moore was a second-year player who basically landed in Indiana after being cut in New England. They didn't have DeForest Buckner yet. They had just a bunch of guys. I mean, Grover Stewart was great, but before Eberflus came, he was just a guy. So I'm like, we might be pretty good on defense. I think a lot of people aren't paying enough attention to the defense, because everybody's so obsessed with wide receivers, We didn't trade, first round draft pick for Tyreek Hill,
Yeah, no, it's true. And you were talking about it too. I mean, obviously the Bears were in a position to beat the 49ers last year with Matt Nagy as the head coach. But you also pulled up that Eberflus had success shutting down Kyle Shanahan. Was it last year, 2 years ago?
I think it was last year. Yeah, they shut him down. Yeah, I think it was last year they played him. Yeah, they scored on the opening drive, and it looked like a typical Shanahan thing. They just kind of marched the field, ran the ball, play action. Then he adjusted in the game. It's amazing. I had never seen this before, in a very long time in Chicago. A coach actually in-game adjust and stop Shanahan from running the ball. And then they basically just smoked them. And then they start doing the typical things, picking off passes, stripping the ball away, punching the ball out. Well, that's another thing, man.
Yeah.
These guys are going to rally to the ball, just like Lovey days. They're going to strip at the ball. They're going to punch at the ball. There's going to be turnovers. We got like 8 interceptions last year. It was horrible. We didn't turn the ball over.
Not at all.
Take the ball away a lot at all. That's going to help the offense. You get more possessions. You stop them from scoring and you get more possessions. You have more opportunity to score. Justin Fields has more opportunity to rack up fantasy stats. It's all about complementary football, and that's the thing that I like. I'm excited about the defense. And it's not being talked about. No one's talking about the defense.
Yeah, and they're acting like it doesn't help. Like you said, getting the ball back into Justin Fields' hands is great. Shorter fields are great. It just
we did it in 2018. That's the reason why Nagy's offense looked halfway competent in 2018, because Fangio's defense was handing the ball at the 50-yard line. You know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, a lot more possessions that start at the 50 instead of your own 15, then it's going to be amazing what can happen. And again, like, I know that I repeat this a lot, and so I apologize to everybody who listens to every show, but it's like, look, there were 3 games last year, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the 49ers, where we had leads late. Even against the Packers, we were leading at halftime. Mm-hmm. If we could have stopped the Packers on a fourth quarter drive, Justin Fields would have had the ball in his hands with an opportunity to win the game. They win 3 of those games. Now, all of a sudden, the Bears have 9 wins. That would have been bad for us because at least one of them would have survived. Probably Ryan Pace.
Yeah.
And then we would have had a new coach, and it probably wouldn't have been as good. And then it would have been a disaster. But it worked out the way that it worked out. I just don't understand why people say that, well, your roster's much worse. Like, much worse? 7 games of Khalil Mack has made the team that much worse. Allen Robinson, who I love dearly, not giving a shit, losing him makes us worse. I don't understand any of that. And by the way, Sammy, sorry. I got so worked up. I didn't mean to cuss. I go on the Tape Never Lies network. You would think I was Bill Burr, just cussing up a storm. I come over here for our nice Canadian host, and I've never said a bad word in my life. But it fires me up. And again, like, I know that this is one of the things that's, why I really enjoy following you on Twitter, is like, you're calling the people out on this, and not in a weird way. And I'm trying to be respectful. I'm not trying to call people names.
Yeah, exactly.
Just being like, I just very simply be like, I do not agree with your premise.
Exactly.
And then people are like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, please. I've talked enough, please.
Nah, you're fine. It's your show, man. But no, it's the same thing. I try not to be mean. I try to be how I would be in real life. There's a little bit of banter back and forth, but I try not to, curse people out and stuff. But it's the thing. I love Khalil Mack. I am on record saying I don't think the Bears should trade Khalil Mack. He should retire. His jersey should be hanging in the rafters. I hated the way Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy handled Allen Robinson. I do think Allen Robinson could have handled it better, but
sure.
They're 40. He's 28. I expect 40-year-olds to be a little bit more mature than a 20-something-year-old, right? Yeah. Being one myself. So they could have handled it better. But, yes, we didn't get a lot of production out of the players that we lost. I love Akeem Hicks, too. I actually hope they sign him on a 1-year deal.
I do, too. Yeah, I really do, too.
But same time, he missed a lot of time. Allen Robinson, he didn't play. When he did play, he wasn't very interested, and they didn't really have him running, like, any complex routes. He had no chemistry with Justin Fields because they didn't practice together. Right. Yeah. He only played 12 games. Tariq Cohen, sad story, right? He didn't play at all. Yeah. Danny Trevathan, he played 5 games. Akeem Hicks played like 7. So a lot of it, you look at the paper and you see these names and we think 2018, and they're just it's not the same. Justin Fields does not know what it's like to play with 100 catch Allen Robinson. He has no idea what that's like. Mitch Trubisky does. Nick Foles does. Justin Fields, he doesn't. He knows Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, David Montgomery, and Khalil Herbert. That's all he knows. So that's what you have to judge the team off of that, not based off what players were before he got here. He doesn't understand that. You know, that doesn't register in his brain because he knows Allen Robinson barely being here. He doesn't know what it's like to see games dominated by Khalil Mack. He only seen 7 of them, right? In the Bears defense, the front 4 were pretty solid. Travis Gibson is just completely underrated. He had 7 sacks, right?
Going back to play his natural position now.
Yes. And Robert Quinn as well. You know, Robert Quinn was better in the 4-3 than he was. He actually went insane last year, you know. But Roquan Smith playing in a natural will position is awesome too.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, that's, you know, what's funny is Nick Shook, who does a lot of our analytics for Next Gen Stats, had an article out at the beginning of last year talking about Bobby Quinn, about how effective he actually was at getting pressure on the quarterback, that it wasn't translating into sacks, but he was a very effective player. And so I always credit him to be like, it wasn't really a surprise because Nick Shook had kind of pointed this out. It translated into sack numbers. The sack numbers will likely fall. They'll regress this year, and that's fine.
Yeah.
He's still going to be able to get to the quarterback. He is still going to make a quarterback rush his throws. He is still going to be a presence. He's going to have to get chipped. There's going to be a lot of things going on that, you know what, if you're an IDP fantasy player, his sacks won't be there, and you can be upset about that. But for people who watch football, they will understand, like, he's still making his presence felt. He's still opening things up for the 3 technique. Everything is going to be working better because of him. And it's fun to me. Like that's the whole thing, is like when they traded Khalil Mack, I was upset. I was on record saying, like, let's hold on to both of them. Let's wait till if we need to make trades during the middle of the season, like Denver did with Von Miller, I would be fine with that. But if the Chargers are going to walk up and be like, here's a 2nd round pick, here's Brisker, and we're gonna pay all his salary, then you're like, okay, I got to make that deal.
Exactly.
I'm glad they didn't take the better guy. You took the guy who wasn't better. Like I don't know that how we would have fit into the Charger system, but it's like you took the guy who was hurt, but it's bigger name value, and maybe it's an LA thing. You need the big name to bring that in, but whatever. Like, you took the worser player, or the less productive player over the last couple of years. You paid him all the money, so we don't have to. And you gave us Brisker. Like, okay, I'll make that deal anytime. And now our defense is better.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't emphasize enough. People are just not paying attention to the defense. I know it's offensive driven league, but yeah, Robert Quinn and Robert Quinn played under Rod Marinelli in the Cowboy system. So he already knows the low system. People were joking about the low system, but this thing has been around since Dungy. Right? This isn't anything new. You know, they hustle. And if you go back and watch the Colts game, for anybody that has NFL Game Pass, Baldy did a breakdown, and it was painful to watch. Shout out to Baldy. I love Baldy.
Baldy's breakdowns.
He did a breakdown. It's on YouTube. The Bears versus the Colts. I remember that game. We got smacked. We almost won the game. Nick Foles threw the ball, went off Anthony Miller's hands. They picked it off. But he was just breaking it down how the Colts were just playing bear defense. He kept saying, look at the Colts playing bear defense in Chicago, because they were rallying to the ball. They were every time David Montgomery got tackled, it was like a pile of white jerseys on top of him.
Yeah.
And they were all like trying to get the ball out. I miss that. I want to see that in Chicago. I want to see just swarms of guys tackling. I think Lance Brigg retweeted it. Somebody posted a video of like the Bears versus the Vikings, and they threw the running back the ball in the flat, and like Chicago Bears were like just jumping over people. Just it seemed like they were like coming out of the stands, like just laying hits, trying to get the ball out. And it was like crazy. It was like almost like a video game. Like guys were just jumping over offensive line and then just hitting people. Yeah. I want to see that in football. I'm a meathead Chicago Bears fan. I want defense. I want running the ball. I want Justin Fields to hit Darnell Mooney over the top for 80 yards on a go route. You know, that's what I want to see. Bear down.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of being a little bit of a meatball myself. Well, listen, Ill Will. I think that is the best place to stop this. Want to thank you for hanging out here today. I believe if you'll ever return, the invitation will be extended once again. I enjoyed this. You're as delightful in person as you are on Twitter, and so I thank you for being here. And before you go, tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter. I know Sammy was having a hard time. Like, there's 13 Ill Wills. It's like, no. He's unmistakable. You'll be able to find him. But where can everybody find you on Twitter and follow along? And of course, follow along with your podcast.
Yes, it's at 79 Ill Will. You can follow the Three Kings. We're on all streaming devices. We got to have you on, right?
Please. 100%.
Three Kings in the Midway, Devore Nesby, Dan Goodwin, my co-hosts. We're no hold bar podcast, so you can curse, you can rant like a sailor.
I'm gonna come in and curse up a storm.
So if you got a lot of anger to get off your chest, you can do it on our podcast.
This is the album they sell at Target. When I go on your show, we'll be the one they sell
with the
in all the other record shops. Yeah, explicit lyrics. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you soon, and bear down.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Bear down, baby.
All right, there he goes. The great Ill Will. Wasn't he amazing? I know that Sammy was sitting there pointing to his watch like, Rank, let's wrap it up. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks for everybody for being here today. I will tell you, though, a couple of programming notes that you might want to take advantage of. And I didn't write it down. I will tell you. I'll just tell you the good stuff. Tuesday night, take it to the rank. We're going to be having a very special guest. Can I say this? If not, cut it off, Sammy. Jim McMahon, the punky QB, is going to be on Take It to the Rank Tuesday night, a Q&A session. I'm probably going to ignore all of you and ask all the questions, but it doesn't matter. Jim McMahon is going to be with us. And then on Thursday, Kari Blasingame will be there talking about the run scheme and everything like that. So we've got a couple of great shows coming up. We've got another guest that we're working on as well. For any of you who like The Bachelor. No. It's a football related thing. So we're working on somebody else. So a lot of good stuff coming on, but Jim McMahon on Tuesday, make sure you join us there, 8 p.m. Eastern. Until then, everybody, bear down. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.